Chapter 5. 30 in the morning. I stepped out of my front door with a mug of coffee in one hand and my keys in the other, already thinking about the roofing job that was supposed to pay 15 grand and cover my little girl's school tuition for the whole year. And then my stomach dropped. There was nothing in my driveway but a dark oil stain. My truck, the one I rely on to feed my kid and keep my business alive, was gone. Just gone. And the sick part? It wasn't stolen. It was towed. Ordered by the president of our HOA, a woman named Karen Holbrook, who decided in the middle of the night that my livelihood violated her version of community standards. That one power trip cost me a contract, my reputation, and almost my ability to keep a roof over our heads. I'm not some hotshot executive. I'm a construction guy. My hands are cracked from years of lifting shingles and mixing concrete. My jeans are always dusted with sawdust, and I spend more time under the sun than in front of a screen. My wife passed away 18 months earlier, and since then, it's just been me and my daughter Emma. She's 8. With ribbons in her hair I can never tie quite right, and every day I wake up just trying to make sure she feels safe. That's why we moved into Maple Grove Estates, a place that looked like it promised safety, bike rides, good schools, and neighbors who waved from their porches. Instead, I ran headfirst into the reign of Karen. Picture this woman, perfectly highlighted blonde hair that probably cost more than most families' groceries for the month. Leather binder clutched like it contained state secrets. Always in heels that clicked like a metronome of judgment. Driving a spotless Lexus. Karen had been running the HOA for 6 years straight. The other board members didn't challenge her. They either kissed the ring or avoided her wrath. 3 weeks after I moved in, she called me out for parking my Ford F-350 in my own damn driveway. She said commercial vehicles created visual pollution. I explained politely, because I was still new, that my truck was my office, my toolbox, my everything, and I'd be willing to park it behind the house. She smirked and told me no, quoting some covenant buried in Section 12 about commercial equipment. From that moment, it was clear. She didn't want a neighbor. She wanted a subject. The letters started. First a friendly reminder, then official warnings, then threats of enforcement action. I ignored them when I could, argued when I had to. But then a massive storm hit one night. Half a roof got torn off an elderly widow's house across town, and I spent 3 straight days repairing it, leaving my truck parked overnight because I had nowhere else to stash the heavy equipment. Karen saw her chance. She sent an email at 11:45 p.m. when she knew I'd be dead asleep. At sunrise, my truck was gone, yanked by a tow truck like it was stolen right out from under me. $15,000 of work disappeared with it. My client moved on. In this business, one missed job makes you unreliable. And if the reason is my HOA towed my truck from my own driveway, you're a laughingstock. I stood in that empty driveway with Emma watching from the porch, asking why Daddy's truck was gone. And all I could think was, what the hell am I going to do? I paid nearly $400 just to get my truck back. It felt like begging for scraps. I wanted to scream, to smash something. But mostly, I just felt small. For the first time in my life, I doubted myself. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe moving here was a mistake. Maybe I should just sell the house, pack up, and leave. But then Emma asked me if the mean lady was going to take our house too. That snapped me awake. No way in hell was I going to let my daughter grow up thinking someone like Karen could bully us out of our home. if she wanted a war. She was going to get one, but it wasn't going to be a shouting match on the sidewalk. I was going to beat her with the one thing construction guys know better than anyone else: the blueprint. I tore through the HOA's governing documents like they were building plans. 37 pages of contradictions, loopholes, and sloppy writing. And while Karen was busy nitpicking my truck, I noticed neighbors all around had violations: work vans in driveways, boats collecting rust, basketball hoops blocking sidewalks, even a full or blown auto repair shop running out of a garage. Not a single violation notice. I took pictures, logged dates, even GPS, tagged the spots. My friend Rex, a lawyer who's as down to earth as they come, looked over my evidence and nearly spit his coffee. "This isn't enforcement," he told me. "This is discrimination with a paper trail." I filed a formal complaint citing the principle of uniform enforcement, meaning if they can't enforce rules fairly and equally, they lose their right to enforce anything at all. Karen panicked. Within 48 hours, everyone I'd documented suddenly got violation notices, including her own board allies. She called an emergency meeting in her living room to spin the story. But I walked in with a laptop full of evidence and asked one simple question about the 12 grand the HOA had supposedly spent on landscaping improvements. No one could produce an invoice. Her mask slipped right then, and I knew I'd struck a nerve. Karen tried to rewrite the rules, scheduling a vote to ban commercial vehicles over £10,000. My truck? 11,200. But that's when fate handed me a gift. I spotted her husband pulling into their driveway with his plumbing van. Massive, easily heavier than mine. Same oil stains on their driveway told me it had been parked there for months. Hypocrisy doesn't get clearer than that. Still, I kept digging. At midnight, when the house was quiet, I combed through county records. That's when I hit the jackpot. The 47-space parking lot that Karen had used as her personal ATM for years, where she ordered tows, collected fines, and bullied families, wasn't even HOA property. It was still owned by the original developer, Brookstone Communities, which meant every tow she ordered, every dollar collected, was illegal. I called Rex in the middle of the night, and we set up a meeting with Brookstone's founder, who nearly laughed when he confirmed it. He'd been paying taxes on that land for 25 years, never sold it, never gave HOA authority to touch it. Karen had been running a phantom empire on stolen ground. When word started spreading, Karen escalated. She sent fake assessment letters demanding $500 from elderly neighbors, calling it a legal defense fund. She filed a police report accusing me of threatening her during meetings. She even leaked lies about my company to clients, hoping to sink me professionally. And when none of that worked, she crossed the line into real danger. I found my truck's brake lines cut one morning, fluid pooling on the driveway. My neighbor's camera caught her crouching there in the dark. That was no longer HOA business. That was attempted murder. By then, I had allies. Mrs. Rodriguez, the widow whose roof I'd fixed, rallied neighbors. Jake the plumber started a petition. Even board member Tom Webb cracked under pressure and handed me evidence. 2 sets of books. One fake for state filings, and one real that showed tens of thousands funneled into Karen's husband's company. And worse, signatures on the original HOA incorporation documents had been forged. The entire association was built on fraud. 25 years of rules were nothing but a lie. I'll never forget the night Tom slid that envelope across my kitchen table, his hands shaking. "This will destroy me too," he whispered. But he'd had enough. I looked at the pages, The forgeries, the proof, and I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every family that had been squeezed, intimidated, or robbed by her for decades. We built a team in my garage. Rex drafted legal filings. Sarah, a CPA neighbor, tracked every stolen dollar. Detective Chen, retired but sharp as ever, analyzed evidence like it was a crime scene. Brookstone prepared to reclaim their lot. We weren't just fighting back. We were building a plan that could actually free the neighborhood. Karen, of course, tried her last trick, a media stunt. She stood on her porch with TV cameras, crying about being terrorized by an unstable contractor. She painted herself as the victim. But real reporters dug deeper, and when they saw the documents, the forged signatures, the footage of her cutting my brake lines, the narrative collapsed. The final showdown came at the biggest community meeting I've ever seen. The room was packed, neighbors shoulder to shoulder, the air buzzing with anger and anticipation. Karen walked in late, binder clutched to her chest, ready to play Queen of the Block one last time. She launched into her speech about safety and standards, but before she could finish, Jake stood up and said loud enough for the whole room, "Karen, we've seen the video of you under Garrett's truck." The silence that followed was absolute. Her face twisted, her voice cracked. But it didn't matter. I stood then, holding the legal complaints already filed with federal agencies. I told her plainly, the FBI, the IRS, and the state attorney general were all already investigating. Brookstone had reclaimed the parking lot. The HOA had no legal standing left. And she was facing charges of fraud, tax evasion, and attempted homicide. The cops stepped forward and cuffed her right there in front of everyone. 6 years of intimidation ended in 6 seconds of clinking metal. Neighbors exhaled like they'd been holding their breath for years. Karen tried to shout that we were ruining everything, but her words just echoed flat in a room that had already turned the page. Walking out that night, I didn't feel joy or celebration. I felt something sharper, heavier, relief. Justice had finally caught up to her. My truck was still scarred. My reputation had taken hits. But my daughter could finally sleep without asking if the mean lady was coming for us. And the lesson I learned, the one I'll never forget, is simple. Bullies hide behind rules until someone reads the fine print.